Shalom, this is Yair Davidiy speaking to you from the land of Israel. We're continuing our studies of the lost 10 tribes. Today we are going to discuss the tribes of Reuben. Reuben was the firstborn tribe. He was part of the 10 tribes. The tribe of Reuben was part of the exiled 10 tribes. The exiled 10 tribes had the task to upgrade humanity, to reform humanity, to elevate mankind. And the main burden of this task was to fall upon the sons of Joseph, but Reuben also had a part to play in it. Reuben also had something to do with it. Reuben, even though the firstborn right was taken from him, something of it still remained. He was the first one to come to fruition, the first one to make his name felt in the world, the first one to be a civilizing influence. In 1 Chronicles 5:1 it says, 1 Chronicles 5:1, now the sons of Reuben, the firstborn of Israel. He was indeed the firstborn, but because he defiled his father's bed, his birthright was given to the sons of Joseph. His birthright was given to the sons of Joseph, the son of Israel, so that the genealogy is not listed according to the birthright. Yet Judah prevailed over his brothers, and from him came a ruler, although the birthright was Joseph's. The sons of Reuben, the firstborn of Israel, were Hanok, Palul, Hezron, and Carmi. So we have here in these verses certain important points that we should remember. That first of all, Judah prevailed over his brothers, and from him came a ruler. The Messiah will come from Judah. Judah has a certain preeminence. So too Reuben is the firstborn. He should have had the overall firstborn rights, but these were taken from him and given to Joseph. But even so, he is still referred to as the firstborn, and something of the firstborn prerogatives and duties still came to him, and he fulfilled them. The tribe of Reuben, amongst the 10 tribes, 10 tribes were exiled by the Assyrians. They lost consciousness of their ancestries and they moved to the west. We find them amongst Western nations, amongst the 10 tribes who went to the west. We find that the tribe of Reuben, when Reuben had, before then, been in the land of Israel, he had occupied an area east of the Jordan River. He was, together with Gad and half tribe of Manasseh, were east of the tribe of east of the Jordan River, in the area known as the land of Gilead. See Joshua 22:9. In French translations of the Bible, the term Gilead is rendered as Galad. And in France, the early Celtic peoples, who were quite powerful, and they were centered in France, they were known as the Galati or Galadi under the same name, Gilead. So that is worth noting. That is one of our indications that these people were indeed the lost 10 tribes, and that Reuben was there. We also find the word Zarephath in the Bible. The prophet Abijah spoke of Zarephath, and he referred to the lost 10 tribes being there. See Abijah, the book of Abijah in the Bible, verse 118, and according to the Hebrew text, as confirmed by rabbinical commentators, this verse is referring to the lost 10 tribes being there, being in Zarephath. Zarephath, according to the commentators such as Rashi and the others, means the land of France. In other words, they say especially the lost 10 tribes were in the land of France. And the Galati from Reuben were there. We also had the Rubuari Franks. Rubuari Franks who conquered France and gave France its name. The name Rubuari is another form of the name Reuben. We also had the Hasuari or Katuari Franks. The Hasuari Franks were descended from Hezron, a son of Reuben. Names associated with the descendants of Reuben associated with France. According to a Midrash, Numbers 2:5, Rabbah, Numbers 2:5, the symbol of Reuben was a mandrake plant. Reuben, according to the Bible in Genesis 30:14, had found mandrakes in the field, and brought them to his mother, Leah. And Leah used these mandrakes to hire the attentions of her husband away from Rachel. In other words, to buy the right to be with her husband from Rachel, she used the mandrakes that Reuben had brought to her. So this is something of love. This is connected with romance. And mandrakes traditionally had aphrodisiac qualities and enhance and increase the power of conjugation. Also, Reuben is later recorded as having acted irregularly with Bilhah, the concubine of his father, see Genesis 25:2. Reuben was romantic, so are the French, at least they have the reputation of being so. Also, one of the clans of Reuben was Carmi, whose name in Hebrew means my vineyard, Carmi. France is known for its vineyards, its wines, its good wines, and its expert winemakers in the culture of drinking wine. Characteristics of Reuben parallel those of the French. Reuben was the first son. The nation of Reuben was France. France was also at times controlled by Edom, as were other Israelite nations. Edom and Jacob were rivals for control of the world, for the influence to be over humanity. They were struggling with each other from the time when they were born. They were twin brothers struggling for each other, and this struggle is going on today. And the lost 10 tribes were in exile, and this exile is known as the exile of Edom, and Edom is also intermixed with them, around them, sometimes takes over from them, and this is the reality. And so France was also controlled by Edom, in part or in whole, and so were other Israelite nations. The present-day exile is known as the exile of Edom. We are still in it. We'll discuss this at another time, in another place. Despite Reuben being partly dominated by Edom, internally and externally, he was also one of the 10 tribes, a major leading element amongst the 10 tribes, the firstborn son, and he too had to give rise to help fulfill the promises and the tasks that was given unto them. And these promises had to be fulfilled. They were irrevocable, and part of the reasons for the 10 tribes being exiled in the first place. And so France was the first Israelite nation to become great. You had Charlemagne conquered all of Europe, controlled all of Europe, and he helped civilize the European barbarian nations. He began the process of encouraging literacy, scholarship, and everything else that we take for granted. The Middle Ages, whatever was good in the Middle Ages, emanated from the rule of Charlemagne, the King of France, from France. They also conquered Germany and set up the Holy Roman Empire, and Charlemagne himself was a good man, though his followers did not always go in his footsteps. In other words, at all events, after that, the French Revolution, much later the French Revolution, followed by the era of Napoleon. First came the French Revolution, then came the rulership of Napoleon and his conquests. And this, they established the innate rights of man. That each human being has an innate humanity, has rights, is born with rights. Just by being human gives him a right to live, a right to certain basic principles. Also, the French, in the French Revolution, also established the principle of rationalization, of thinking, or logic. In government and in science. And the modern world is built on this. Reuben started the process of reform and humanization. Reuben started the process of reform and humanization, basic kindness as befits the first son. This is what the first son should do, and this is what Reuben did. Also, the French Empire was very extensive, wasn't as large as the British Empire, but it was quite large. And it also, in many cases, they laid the groundwork for the British to come after them. The French first established bases in India and began to open it up, and the British came after them. So too in North America, the French had colonies in Canada, Quebec, Louisiana, and other parts of North America, and they were after it, and the British came after them. And so they also, in other words, laid the groundwork. They laid the groundwork, in a sense, for the British to follow after them. And they themselves had a big empire, which was quite which on the whole was quite progressive, quite good, and quite successful. The France had the colonists in North America, Quebec, Louisiana, the Caribbean, Africa, the Pacific and Indian Oceans, and Indonesia. Just as Joseph, Britain and America were to help reform the world and elevate the nations, so was France. The Bible codes show the Hebrew name for France, Zarephath, interlocked with clans of Reuben. This is proof that the lost 10 tribes are in the west, and one of them, that is the tribes of Reuben, are in France, in Zarephath.